The chemistry lab smelled of sulfur and disinfectant, a sharp combination that made most students wrinkle their noses during first period. But for 17-year-old Maya Richardson, the scent meant safety. Here, among the beakers and Bunsen burners, everything followed rules. Atoms bonded predictably. Reactions produced consistent results. Unlike the unpredictable cruelty of the hallways, chemistry made sense. Maya arrived early, as always, her warm backpack slung over one shoulder. She wore a faded Howard University hoodie, her mother's from college, and jeans that had seen better days. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she moved with quiet efficiency, setting up her station with military precision. Everything in its place. Everything controlled. She was the only black student in advanced chemistry. She was also the only student who didn't need to check the periodic table when balancing equations. The other students filtered in gradually, their designer backpacks hitting the tables with expensive thuds. Maya kept her eyes on her notebook, reviewing her pre-lab calculations. She had learned that invisibility was a survival strategy at Riverside Preparatory Academy, where most students' parents were surgeons, tech executives, or politicians. Her mother was a nurse working double shifts. Her father had died when Maya was 12, leaving behind nothing but medical bills and a Purple Heart from his army service. Well, look who's already brown-nosing. Maya's stomach tightened. She didn't need to look up to recognize the voice of Bryce Hamilton, Riverside Prep's golden boy, star lacrosse player, student body president, son of Senator Marcus Hamilton, whose campaign billboards dotted the city with the slogan, "Hamilton, fighting for your values." Bryce slid into the seat across from her, his 6'2" frame blocking her light. His polo shirt was perfectly pressed, his smile perfectly practiced. To everyone else, he was charming. To Maya, he was a nightmare wearing expensive cologne. "I wasn't talking to you," Maya said quietly, not meeting his eyes. Rule 1 of surviving bullies: don't give them ammunition. "Oh, she speaks," Bryce announced to his friends, Tyler and Josh, who flanked him like bodyguards. "I thought maybe you'd forgotten English. You know, being so focused on being the teacher's pet and all." Maya's jaw tightened, but she said nothing. Mr. Peterson, their chemistry teacher, was still in the prep room, oblivious to the social warfare happening in his classroom. "I heard your mom works at County General," Bryce continued, leaning forward with false friendliness. "My dad's on the hospital board. Maybe I should mention how her daughter is taking spots away from students who actually belong here." The threat was clear. Riverside Prep had a small scholarship program, 5 spots for diverse students. Maya had earned hers through straight A's and a perfect entrance exam. But students like Bryce saw it differently. To them, she was a charity case, an outsider, someone who needed to be reminded of her place. "I earned my spot," Maya said, her voice steady despite the anger building in her chest. "Same as everyone else." Bryce laughed, but there was no warmth in it. "Sure you did. Affirmative action is a hell of a thing, isn't it?" Before Maya could respond, Mr. Peterson entered, carrying a box of lab equipment. The room fell silent. Bryce shot Maya a smile that didn't reach his eyes, promised that this conversation wasn't over. Maya opened her notebook and tried to focus on the lesson, but her hands were shaking, just slightly. She hated that he could do this to her. She hated that his words could burrow under her skin, no matter how many times she told herself they didn't matter. And most of all, she hated that no one else seemed to notice or care that Bryce Hamilton was a monster hiding behind a perfect smile. The bullying had started small. A comment here, a joke there. At first, Maya told herself she was overreacting. Maybe Bryce was just competitive. Maybe his comments about affirmative action were clumsy attempts at humor. But over the past 3 months, the pattern had become impossible to ignore. He accidentally knocked her books off her desk in calculus. He whispered diversity higher whenever she answered a question. He convinced his friends to exclude her from study groups, then loudly complained to teachers that she refused to collaborate. The worst part was how subtle he was. Bryce never crossed the line into obvious cruelty. He was too smart for that. His father was a politician. After all, Bryce had learned early how to weaponize words without leaving evidence. When Maya mentioned it to her guidance counselor, Mrs. Chun had smiled sympathetically. "Bryce Hamilton? Oh, honey, I've known that boy since he was a freshman. He's always been such a leader. Maybe you're just feeling the pressure of fitting in?" Riverside can be intense for new students. Translation: you're imagining things. You're being too sensitive. You're the problem. Maya stopped reporting after that. Today's lab was a particularly complex titration experiment worth 20% of their semester grade. Mr. Peterson had assigned random partners, and Maya's stomach dropped when she heard her name called alongside Bryce's. "Looks like you're stuck with me," Bryce said as he sauntered over to her station. His smile was sharp. "Try not to mess this up." "I need an A." "I need an A too," Maya replied evenly. "So let's just work." For the first 20 minutes, they worked in tense silence. Maya handled the calculations while Bryce manipulated the equipment. She noticed he was actually competent in the lab. His hands were steady, his measurements precise. For a moment, she wondered if they could actually complete this assignment without incident. Then Tyler appeared at their table, phone in hand. "Yo, Bryce, did you see this?" Tyler showed him the screen, and both boys laughed. Maya tried to ignore them, but Bryce turned the phone toward her. It was a racist caricature with text that read, "When affirmative action gets you into a PChem, but you can't even light a Bunsen burner." The image had been posted to Riverside Prep's anonymous gossip account. It had 37 likes. Maya's face burned. She recognized the setup in the photo. It was from last week's lab, when she briefly struggled with a faulty gas valve. Someone had taken her picture and weaponized it. Funny, right? Bryce said, watching her reaction like a hawk studying prey. "I mean, no offense. It's just a joke." "It's racist," Maya said quietly. Her voice shook despite her efforts to control it. "Oh, come on. Don't be so sensitive. We joke about everyone." Bryce's tone was light, dismissive. "You can't expect special treatment just because what?" Maya interrupted, meeting his eyes directly for the first time. "Say it. Finish that sentence." Bryce's smile faltered. Around them, other students had stopped working, sensing the confrontation. The lab fell silent except for the hiss of gas burners. "I just think," Bryce said slowly, recovering his composure, "that if you're going to take opportunities away from other students, you should be able to handle a little criticism. That's all." "I didn't take anything from anyone," Maya said. "I earned my place here. Did you, though?" Bryce leaned forward, his voice dropping to a whisper only she could hear. "Or did the admissions office need to fill a quota? We all know how this works, Maya. Your skin color got you here, not your brain." The words landed like physical blows. Maya felt her vision narrow, her breath catch. She wanted to scream. She wanted to cry. She wanted to grab the beaker in front of her and dash. No doubt, she forced herself to breathe, to think, to remember her father's words. Never give them the reaction they want, baby girl. That's when they win. "We should finish the lab," Maya said, her voice hollow. She turned back to her notebook, pretending to check calculations she'd already completed perfectly. Bryce watched her for a long moment, disappointed by her lack of reaction. Then he shrugged and went back to the experiment. But as he reached for the hydrochloric acid, Maya noticed his hands weren't quite as steady as before. His jaw was clenched. He was angry that she hadn't broken. Good, she thought. Let him be angry. What she didn't notice was Bryce glancing at Tyler, then at the rack of chemicals, then back at her. A calculation was happening behind his eyes, one that had nothing to do with chemistry and everything to do with power. The experiment should have been straightforward. They were supposed to neutralize a strong acid with a strong base, using phenolphthalein as an indicator. The solution would turn from clear to pink at the exact moment of neutralization. Maya was recording their observations when Bryce reached for a bottle on the upper shelf. She was too focused on her writing to notice which bottle he grabbed, or to see the deliberate way he glanced at Mr. Peterson, who was helping a struggling student at the back of the room. "Hand me the burette," Bryce said. His voice was different, tighter. Maya passed it to him without looking up. She was writing the third observation when she heard Bryce curse. "Oh, damn." My hand slipped. She looked up just in time to see liquid splashing toward her face. Maya's reflexes kicked in instantly, muscle memory from years of helping her nurse mother with home first aid. She jerked backward, and the majority of the liquid missed her face, hitting her shoulder instead, but a few drops caught her cheek. The burn was immediate and intense. Maya gasped, her hand flying to her face. Around her, students were shouting. Mr. Peterson appeared out of nowhere, his face pale with horror. "The eye wash station, now!" he barked. Maya stumbled toward the emergency station in the corner, her cheek on fire. Mr. Peterson hit the lever, and cool water flooded over her face. The relief was immediate but incomplete. Her skin still burned where the chemical had made contact. "What happened?" Mr. Peterson demanded, his voice shaking. Chemical accidents were every science teacher's nightmare. "It was an accident," Bryce said quickly. His voice was pitched perfectly shocked, apologetic, concerned. "I was transferring the solution and my hand slipped. I'm so sorry, Maya. Are you okay?" Through the water streaming down her face, Maya caught a glimpse of Bryce. His expression was perfect, wide eyes, worried frown, trembling hands. Academy Award worthy, but she'd seen his face in the split second before the accident. She'd seen the calculation. The intention. This wasn't an accident. "I need to call the nurse," Mr. Peterson said, already reaching for the phone. "And someone get the principal. Maya, keep your face under the water for at least 15 minutes. The classroom had erupted into chaos. Students were crowding around, phones out, recording. Maya heard whispers. "Did you see that? Oh my God. Her face. Bryce said it was an accident. She should have been more careful." Maya closed her eyes against the water and the stairs. Her cheek throbbed. But worse than the physical pain was the realization crystallizing in her mind. Bryce had done this on purpose. And he was going to get away with it because everyone loved Bryce Hamilton. Everyone believed Bryce Hamilton. And who would believe the scholarship student who'd been causing tension in his lab group? When the nurse finally arrived with the principal, Maya's cheek had turned an angry red. The school nurse, a kind woman named Miss Rodriguez, examined the burn with gentle fingers. "You're lucky," she said softly. "It's first degree. It'll heal, but you'll need to keep it clean and covered." "What was the chemical?" Principal Whitmore asked Mr. Peterson. He was a tall man with silver hair who looked more like a corporate executive than an educator. Mr. Peterson checked the bottle Bryce had been holding. His face went from pale to green. Sulfuric acid. Diluted, thankfully, but still, he looked at Maya with genuine distress. "I'm so sorry. This should never have happened." "Mr. Hamilton," Principal Whitmore said, turning to Bryce. "Explain." Bryce stepped forward, his shoulders slumped, his eyes downcast. He looked like a golden retriever who'd accidentally broken a vase. "Sir, I feel terrible. We were working on the titration, and I reached for what I thought was the neutralizing base. I must have grabbed the wrong bottle. When I was pouring it into the burette, my hand slipped. I tried to warn Maya, but it happened so fast. His voice cracked. I'm so sorry. It was a masterclass in manipulation. Bryce had positioned himself as the remorseful student who'd made an honest mistake. He'd even thrown in the detail about grabbing the wrong bottle. Plausible deniability. Maya wanted to scream that he was lying, but she had no proof. Just her word against his. This is a serious safety violation, Principal Whitmore said. Mr. Hamilton, you'll need to write an incident report and meet with me tomorrow. We'll also need to inform your parents. Of course, sir, Bryce said. Whatever I need to do. And Maya, he turned to her with perfectly crafted remorse. I'll do anything to make this right. I'm so sorry. Maya met his eyes. In that moment, with adults watching, his expression was flawless sympathy. But she saw the glint beneath it. The satisfaction. He'd hurt her. And he'd framed it as an accident. And everyone believed him. Maya, we'll need to call your mother, Ms. Rodriguez said gently. And you should probably go to the hospital to make sure there's no lasting damage. Maya nodded numbly. As Ms. Rodriguez led her out of the lab, Maya heard the whispers starting behind her. Poor Bryce. He looked devastated. It was just an accident. She should have been paying more attention. No one was saying, poor Maya. As she walked down the hallway, her cheek throbbing and her eyes burning with unshed tears. Maya made a decision. She wasn't going to report this as bullying. She wasn't going to cry to administrators who wouldn't believe her. She was going to document everything. She was going to be smarter than Bryce Hamilton. And when the time came, she was going to make sure everyone saw him for exactly what he was. But first, she needed to heal. And she needed a plan. The hospital confirmed Miss Rodriguez's diagnosis. First-degree chemical burn. Painful but not permanently damaging. Maya's mother, Diane Richardson, sat beside her in the emergency room with her nurse's uniform still on, having left her shift early when the school called. Baby, are you sure it was an accident? Diane asked quietly, studying her daughter's face. Maya hesitated. Her mother knew about the bullying, the comments, the exclusion, the microaggressions. But Maya had downplayed it, not wanting to add stress to a woman already working 60-hour weeks to keep them afloat. Mom, it doesn't matter what I think, Maya said finally. It matters what I can prove. Diane's eyes, so much like her late husband's, filled with understanding. Marcus Richardson had been a military police officer in the Army before an IED ended his service, and 3 years later, his life. He taught Maya about evidence, documentation, and the importance of building an airtight case. Then we document, Diane said firmly. We photograph this burn every day as it heals. We keep every medical record. And we watch. Maya nodded. Her mother understood. When Maya returned to school 2 days later, her cheek covered with a medical bandage, the story had already evolved. Bryce had been suspended for 1 day, a slap on the wrist for a serious safety violation. But the narrative had shifted in his favor. He'd visited her at home the day before, accompanied by his parents. Senator Hamilton had brought flowers and expressed his deep concern. Mrs. Hamilton had tears in her eyes. And Bryce had apologized with such apparent sincerity that even Maya's mother had seemed moved. It's admirable that you're taking responsibility, Diane had said carefully. It's the least I can do, Bryce had replied. I can't imagine how scared Maya must have been. If there's anything at all we can do to help, please let us know. When they'd left, Maya had turned to her mother. You know he's lying, right? I know what I believe, Diane had said. But believing and proving are two different things. So we watch and we wait and we document everything. Now, walking into Riverside Prep with her bandaged face, Maya felt every eye on her. But the looks weren't sympathetic. They were judging. She caught fragments of conversations. Heard she's trying to blame Bryce, So dramatic. It was clearly an accident. Probably wants to sue because her family needs money. Maya's stomach turned. Somehow, in the 2 days she'd been gone, she'd become the villain. The scholarship student trying to take down the golden boy over an innocent mistake. She found out how during lunch Maya usually ate alone in the library, but today she needed to use the bathroom first. As she approached, she heard voices inside sharp, female, cruel. I mean, I feel bad about her face and all, but come on. Bryce Hamilton? He's literally the nicest guy in school, right? And now she's trying to make it this whole thing. My dad's a lawyer, and he said she could probably sue. It's probably why she's making such a big deal. Oh, she's already here on charity. Now she wants a payday too? Maya pushed open the door. 3 junior girls, Ashley, Madison, and Claire, froze mid-conversation. Their eyes went wide. Oh my God, we didn't. Maya walked past them to the sink, her movements deliberate. She washed her hands slowly, meeting their eyes in the mirror. Just so we're clear, Maya said quietly, I haven't accused anyone of anything, and I'm not suing anyone. But thank you for the reminder that some people will believe whatever narrative protects their comfort. She dried her hands and left. The girls shocked silence following her out, but the damage was done. The rumor had spread. Maya Richardson, the scholarship student, was trying to destroy Bryce Hamilton's reputation and possibly extort his wealthy family over an accident. By the end of the day, Maya had been excluded from 2 study groups, uninvited from a class project, and subjected to a dozen cold shoulders. Even some teachers looked at her differently with pity, yes, but also with something like suspicion. Only one person approached her with genuine kindness. Her name was Aisha James, a senior whom Maya had seen around but never spoken to. Aisha was one of the other scholarship students, one of the Diversity 5, as they were sometimes called behind their backs. Hey, Aisha said, sliding into the seat beside Maya in the library. I heard what happened. I'm sorry. Maya looked up, surprised. Thanks. I'm also going to tell you something you probably don't want to hear, Aisha continued. Bryce Hamilton is untouchable. His father practically owns this school. 3 years ago, a girl accused Bryce of spreading rumors about her. She had screenshots, witnesses, everything. She was gone by the end of the semester. Family relocated, they said. Maya's blood ran cold. What are you saying? I'm saying be careful. Bryce is dangerous because everyone loves him. And when people love someone, they'll twist themselves into pretzels to justify that person's behavior. Shah paused. But I'm also saying you're not alone. If you need someone who'll actually believe you, I'm here. It was the first genuine offer of help Maya had received. She felt something in her chest loosen slightly. Thank you, she whispered. One more thing, Aisha said, standing to leave. Document everything. Screenshots, recordings if legal, witnesses. Because if you're going to take down a king, you need an army's worth of evidence. Maya nodded. She'd already started. That night, she created a folder on her laptop labeled Chemistry Project. Inside, she began building her case, photos of her burn, the hospital records, a timeline of every interaction with Bryce, screenshots of the racist meme, and a list of witnesses to various incidents. She also did something else. She researched Bryce Hamilton. What she found was interesting. Bryce's social media was carefully curated lacrosse games, volunteer work, honor society events. But when Maya dug deeper into his tagged photos and comments, patterns emerged. There were other students he'd targeted. A freshman boy who'd quit the lacrosse team mid-season, citing personal reasons. A sophomore girl who transferred schools after Bryce's friends had started a rumor about her. A senior who dropped out of the student government race after Bryce's campaign had mysteriously obtained his private therapy records. Bryce Hamilton wasn't just a bully. He was systematic, methodical. He found people's weaknesses and exploited them, always maintaining plausible deniability. Maya leaned back in her chair, her burned cheek throbbing. She thought about her father, about what he would have done. "Fight smart, baby girl," his voice echoed in her memory. Not hard, not loud, smart. Maya opened a new document and began to type. At the top, she wrote, "Operation Golden Boy." Below that, she started outlining a plan. 2 weeks passed. Maya's burn was healing, fading from angry red to pink to a barely noticeable discoloration that makeup could cover. But the social damage lingered. She'd become a ghost at Riverside Prep. Students looked through her. Teachers called on her less. She ate lunch alone, studied alone, existed alone. Bryce, meanwhile, had emerged from the incident more popular than ever. He'd positioned himself as the gracious victim of false accusations, the good guy who'd made an honest mistake and was being crucified for it. He gave an assembly speech about laboratory safety. He volunteered to tutor struggling chemistry students. He even started a fundraiser for burn victims, with posters featuring his handsome face and the tagline, "Turning tragedy into hope." It was brilliant. Sickening, but brilliant. Maya watched it all with careful detachment, documenting everything. She'd learned to become invisible, which meant she could observe without being noticed. She noticed, for instance, that Bryce's friend Tyler had a habit of filming their pranks on his phone. She noticed that Josh, the other member of Bryce's trio, was the one who actually posted to the school's anonymous gossip account. And she noticed that Bryce himself kept a journal, an actual physical journal that he sometimes reviewed during study hall. She also noticed something else. Bryce was getting bored with ignoring her. Bullies needed reactions, and Maya had stopped giving them. It started small. A comment as he passed her in the hallway. "How's the face, charity case?" Then escalated. Her locker was broken in two, her textbooks stolen, her lab equipment accidentally destroyed during class. Anonymous messages sent to her school email. "Go back where you came from." Maya documented it all. Screenshots, photos, timestamps. But she didn't report it. She was waiting. One evening, Aisha texted her, "Community Center, tomorrow, 7 p.m. Trust me." Maya showed up to find Ashaya sitting with 4 other students, all scholarship recipients. All people of color, all people who looked worn down by the daily weight of existing at Riverside Prep. "Welcome to the Invisible Club," Asha said with dark humor. "Population? Everyone Bryce Hamilton thinks doesn't belong here." Over the next 2 hours, Maya heard stories. Jason, a junior, had been framed for plagiarism after beating Bryce's SAT score. Mia, a sophomore, had been sexually harassed by Bryce's friends until she'd stopped coming to school events. Deshaun, a senior, had lost his starting position on the basketball team after Bryce had spread rumors to the coach. They all had stories. They all had evidence. And they'd all been too afraid or too unsupported to come forward. "The administration protects him," Jason said bitterly. "His dad donates $500,000 a year. They're not going to expel their golden goose." "What if we didn't need the administration?" Maya asked slowly. An idea was forming. Everyone looked at her. What if we built a case so airtight that they couldn't ignore it? What if we compiled everything, every incident, every witness, every piece of evidence, and took it public? "Public how?" Mia asked nervously. "His dad's a senator. They'll destroy us." "Not if we're smart about it," Maya said. She pulled out her laptop and opened her chemistry project folder. "I'd been documenting everything Bryce has done to me. But alone, I look like a disgruntled student with an axe to grind. Together, we look like a pattern." Aisha leaned forward, studying the screen. "You want to build a Title X case." "Bigger than that," Maya said. "Title IX is for sexual harassment. This is broader. It's discrimination. It's creating a hostile educational environment. It's systematic targeting of minority students. And if the school won't handle it internally, we go to the state education board. Maybe even the press. The room fell silent. What Maya was proposing was risky. It could blow up in their faces. But it was also the first time any of them had felt like they might actually have power. "I'm in," Asha said finally. One by one, the others nodded. They spent the next month building the case. Each student documented their interactions with Bryce. They collected screenshots, emails, text messages. They identified witnesses. They created a timeline showing that Bryce's behavior wasn't isolated incidents, but a years-long pattern of harassment. Maya became the organizer, the one who kept them focused and documented. She created a shared encrypted folder. She taught them her father's method. Never assume, always verify. Get it in writing. Record when legal. Build redundancy into the evidence. But as they worked, Bryce's attention on Maya intensified. He seemed to sense that something had shifted, that she wasn't just surviving anymore, she was planning. And Bryce Hamilton didn't like losing control. The second incident happened in April. 3 months after the first. Maya was leaving late from the library, the last one out as usual. The parking lot was mostly empty, lit by harsh fluorescent lights that buzzed in the evening quiet. She was texting her mother that she'd be home soon when she heard footsteps behind her. She turned to find Bryce, Tyler, and Josh blocking her path to the bus stop. "Walk much?" Bryce said, his tone light but his eyes cold. "It's almost like you're afraid of us or something." Maya's heart rate spiked, but she kept her expression neutral. "Excuse me. I need to catch my bus." She tried to move around them, but Tyler stepped into her path. "Not so fast, scholarship girl," Tyler said. He was holding his phone, pointed at her, recording. "We've been talking," Bryce continued, moving closer. "And we think you owe me an apology." "For what?" Maya asked, her voice steady despite her racing pulse. "For trying to ruin my reputation," Bryce said. "For spreading rumors that I burned you on purpose. For making me look like a monster when I tried to apologize like a decent human being." "I never said you burned me on purpose," Maya replied carefully. She was aware of the phone recording, aware that her every word could be used against her. "And I haven't spread any rumors." "Liar," Josh spat. "We know you've been talking to people, trying to get them to turn against Bryce." So they knew. Somehow, they'd found out about the group, about the case they were building. "I don't know what you're talking about," Maya said. Bryce stepped closer, invading her space. He was nearly a foot taller than her, and he used that height deliberately, looming. "Here's what's going to happen," he said softly. "You're going to stop whatever little conspiracy you're planning. You're going to stay in your lane. And you're going to remember that you're here on charity, which means you can be sent home just as easily." "Are you threatening me?" Maya asked. Her voice was calm, but her hands were shaking. She kept them in her pockets so the boys wouldn't see. "I'm helping you," Bryce said. "I'm reminding you how things work here. People like you, you're guests. And guests who cause problems don't get to stay." Maya's fear was transforming into anger. She thought about her father, about how he'd faced down enemies with nothing but his integrity and his courage. "People like me," Maya repeated slowly. "You mean scholarship students? Or do you mean something else?" Bryce's smile sharpened. "I mean people who don't belong." "Because I'm black," Maya said flatly. "Say it, Bryce. Stop hiding behind euphemisms." The phone was still recording. Tyler and Josh exchanged nervous glances, but Bryce's expression didn't change. "I don't see color," Bryce said smoothly. "I see someone who got an opportunity through affirmative action and is now trying to destroy the person who's actually earned his place here." It was a perfect soundbite. On recording, he'd look reasonable while she looked like she was playing the race card. Maya realized then that this entire Confrontation was staged. They'd cornered her, recorded her, and were trying to provoke her into saying something they could use against her. If she got angry, if she made threats, if she said anything that could be taken out of context, they'd have ammunition. "I have a bus to catch," Maya said, stepping around them. This time, they let her pass. But as she walked away, she heard Bryce call out, "Hey, Maya, that burn on your face? It's healing nice. Would be a shame if something worse happened." Maya's blood turned to ice. Was that a threat? It sounded like a threat, but said lightly enough that he could claim he was joking if questioned. She didn't turn around. She kept walking, her legs shaking, until she reached the bus stop. When she finally sat down on the bench, her entire body was trembling. She pulled out her phone with shaking hands and opened the voice recorder app. She'd started recording the moment Bryce had approached her. One-party consent was legal in their state, and her father had taught her to always be prepared. She had the whole thing on tape. When she got home, she uploaded the recording to the shared folder and sent a message to the group. "Emergency meeting. Tomorrow. We need to accelerate the timeline." That night, Maya barely slept. She kept thinking about Bryce's words. Would be a shame if something worse happened. She knew she was in danger, but she also knew she was close to having enough evidence to take him down. The question was, which would come first? The emergency meeting convened in Asha's basement the next evening. 6 students crowded around a laptop, listening to Maya's recording with expressions ranging from anger to fear. "He threatened you," Deshaun said when it ended. "That's assault. We need to take this to the police." "And say what?" Jason countered. "That the senator's son made an ambiguous comment that could be interpreted as a joke. They'll laugh us out of the station." "He's right," Aisha said quietly. "We need more. Something undeniable." Maya had been thinking about this all night. What if we give Bryce exactly what he wants? Everyone looked at her. "He wants me to back down, to stop organizing, to disappear. What if I pretend to do that? What if I make him think he won?" "I don't understand," Mia said. "Bryce is careful when he thinks people are watching," Maya explained. "But when he thinks he's in control, when he thinks he's won, he gets sloppy. If he believes I've given up, he might get comfortable. And comfortable people make mistakes." "You want to bait him," Aisha said slowly. "Make him think you're defeated so he'll let his guard down." Maya nodded. "And while he's celebrating his victory, we finish building the case and go public. But we need something big, something that even the administration can't cover up." "Like what?" Jason asked. Maya pulled up a document on her laptop. "I've been researching Riverside Prep's policies. They have a zero-tolerance policy for academic dishonesty. If we could prove that Bryce has been cheating, or better yet, that he's been helping other students cheat, it would be a scandal the school can't ignore. Do we think he's cheating?" Deshaun asked skeptically. "The guy's got a 4.0 GPA. "No," Maya said. "But I think he's been buying his grades. His father makes massive donations conveniently timed around midterms and finals. What if some of those donations come with unspoken expectations?" It was a theory, but as they discussed it, the pieces started fitting together. Teachers who changed grades after parent meetings. Test questions that seemed too specific to be coincidence. Bryce's miraculous recovery from a failing grade in a P history last semester, right after Senator Hamilton's $50,000 donation to the new library. How do we prove it? Mia asked. Maya smiled grimly. "We make Bryce think he's broken me. Then we watch, we wait, and we catch him in the act." The plan was risky. It meant Maya had to publicly give up, stop sitting with the group, stop documenting openly, act defeated. It meant making herself vulnerable again. But if it worked, they'd have Bryce Hamilton exactly where they wanted him. The next day at school, Maya initiated phase 1. She approached Bryce at his locker, her shoulders slumped, her eyes downcast. "Can I talk to you?" she asked quietly. Bryce looked surprised, then suspicious. But curiosity won. Sure. They stepped into an empty classroom. Maya made sure the door stayed open. She wasn't stupid, but she kept her body language submissive, defeated. "I want to apologize," she said, the words tasting like ash. "For everything?" "You were right. I was making a big deal out of an accident. I was stressed, and I took it out on you, and that wasn't fair." Bryce's suspicion melted into satisfaction. "Wow, I appreciate that. That takes a lot of courage. I just want things to go back to normal," Maya continued. "I want to focus on my grades and not cause any more drama. So, I'm sorry. And I hope we can move past this." She could see Bryce calculating, weighing whether this was a trap. But his ego won out. Of course, she'd finally realized he was right. Of course, she'd come crawling back to apologize. "Water under the bridge," Bryce said magnanimously. "I'm glad you're being mature about this." Maya nodded and left, her skin crawling. But as she walked down the hallway, she felt a grim satisfaction. Bryce thought he'd won. He thought she'd given up. Now the real work could begin. Over the next 2 weeks, Maya played her part perfectly. She kept her head down. She stopped eating with Isha. She acted like a defeated, isolated student who'd learned her lesson. Meanwhile, the rest of the group continued their investigation. Jason befriended a kid who worked in the registrar's office. Isha, accidentally, became study partners with a teacher's aide. Deshaun joined the IT club and gained access to archived emails. Slowly, carefully, they built a picture of corruption. Teacher communications discussing administrative pressure to adjust grades. Email threads between Principal Whitmore and Senator Hamilton's office. Payment records showing donations coinciding with grade changes. Thought it was all circumstantial. But together, it painted a damning picture. Then they got their break. Tyler, Bryce's loyal friend, got drunk at a party and started bragging. He mentioned how Bryce had insurance, proof of the grade-buying scheme that he kept as leverage against his father. "Bryce is smarter than people think," Tyler slurred to a group of seniors. "He's got dirt on everyone, even his own dad." Word got back to Maya through Aisha. "If Bryce has evidence of the scheme, we need to get it," Aisha said urgently. "His journal," Maya realized. "He keeps everything in that journal. I've seen him write in it during study hall." "So we need to get the journal," Deshaun said. "We can't steal it," Jason warned. "That's illegal. It would invalidate everything else we found." Maya thought for a moment. What if we don't steal it? What if we just document it? They worked out a plan. It was risky and required perfect timing. But if it worked, they'd have everything they needed to bring down, not just Bryce, but the entire corrupt system protecting him. The spring formal was Riverside Prep's biggest event of the year. Students spend months planning their outfits, their dates, their after-parties. For one night, the social hierarchy was on full display, and everyone was distracted, including Bryce Hamilton. Maya watched from across the parking lot as Bryce arrived with his girlfriend. Madison, one of the girls who trash-talked Maya in the bathroom months ago. He was wearing a tailored suit that probably cost more than Maya's mother made in a month. He looked like a prince arriving at his coronation. He also left his backpack in his car. Maya had been counting on that. Bryce was vain. He wouldn't want to carry a backpack into the formal. But he was also possessive of his belongings. He'd lock it in his car, thinking it was safe. Maya wasn't going to the formal. Neither were her friends. They had other plans. "You sure about this?" Aisha asked, parked in a car 3 spaces away from Bryce's BMW. "If we get caught, we won't," Maya said, though her heart was hammering. Jason's watching the door. Deshaun's got the school security feeds on loop. And Mia's our lookout here. We have 5 minutes. Jason had befriended Bryce's younger brother, a freshman who complained about his jerk older sibling. The brother had mentioned that Bryce kept his car keys in a magnetic case under the wheel up, just in case. Measure their father had insisted on. It took Maya 30 seconds to find the magnetic case. Another 20 to unlock the car. She didn't take the backpack that would be theft. Instead, she pulled out her phone and Bryce's journal. She photographed every page. Dates, names, amounts. Bryce had documented everything, every payment his father had made, every grade that had been changed, every teacher who'd been pressured. He'd even written about his strategy for maintaining his reputation. Make them love you, then they'll excuse anything. Control the narrative, control the people. There were entries about Maya too. The scholarship girl is still a problem. Need to neutralize her before she causes real damage. Dad says he can handle it if necessary. Maya's hands shook as she photographed page after page. This was it. This was everything. 2 minutes as she won from the driver's seat. Maya took the last photos, returned the journal to the exact position she'd found it, and relocked the car. She replaced the key and walked calmly back to Aisha's vehicle. They drove away just as Bryce and Madison emerged from the building, laughing about something. "We did it," Maya whispered, clutching her phone like it held the nuclear codes. Which, in a way, it did. That night, the 6 students compiled everything into a comprehensive document. Testimony from multiple students, recorded threats, evidence of grade manipulation, documentation of Bryce's own words admitting to systematic harassment, and proof of administrative complicity. They titled it, "A Pattern of Harassment, Discrimination, and Corruption at Riverside Preparatory Academy, a Student Report." They sent copies to the State Education Board, the local news stations, and most importantly to the school board members who weren't in Senator Hamilton's pocket. Then they waited. The explosion happened at Monday morning assembly. Principal Whitmore stood at the podium, his face ashen, flanked by 2 state education investigators and a lawyer. Bryce sat in the front row with the other student council members, confused about why the assembly had been called with no warning. "Students," Whitmore began, his voice shaking, "we have been made aware of serious allegations regarding harassment, discrimination, and academic dishonesty within our institution. Effective immediately, pending a full investigation, certain students will be suspended, and certain staff members will be placed on administrative leave." The auditorium erupted into whispers. Whitmore read from a paper, his hands trembling. "Bryce Hamilton, please report to my office immediately. Tyler Chun, Joshua Morrison, the same." Bryce's face went from confused to pale to furious in the span of seconds. He stood up, his jaw clenched, and marched toward the exit. As he passed Maya's row, he locked eyes with her. In that moment, he knew. She'd done this. The defeated scholarship student had destroyed him. "You," he hissed, lunging toward her. Security intercepted him before he could reach her, pulling him back. But his rage was clear, captured on dozens of student phones as he screamed, "You lying, you'll regret this. My father will bury you. You'll never." His voice cut off as they dragged him into the hallway. The auditorium fell silent. Then, slowly, a sound began to build. Applause. It started with Asisha, then spread to Deshaun, Jason, Maya. Other scholarship students joined in. Then students who'd been harassed by Bryce, but were too afraid to speak up. Then students who simply recognized injustice when they saw it. Maya sat frozen, overwhelmed. She felt Aisha squeeze her hand. "You did it," Aisha whispered. "You actually did it." Over the next week, the dominoes fell. The state investigation confirmed everything in the student report. Bryce was expelled. Tyler and Josh were suspended. Principal Whitmore and 2 teachers resigned under pressure. Senator Hamilton's campaign imploded as news coverage exploded. Senator's son expelled for harassment. School covered up corruption. Maya gave one interview to a local news reporter. She spoke calmly, clearly, about the systematic nature of the harassment, the administration's failure to protect minority students, and the importance of documenting everything. What would you say to other students facing similar situations? The reporter asked. Maya thought about her father, about everything he taught her about justice and evidence and fighting smart. Document everything, she said. Build your case. Find your allies. And never let them convince you that you deserve to be treated as less than human. You belong here. We all belong here. And people who abuse power only win when good people stay silent. The interview went viral. 2 months later, Riverside Prep implemented sweeping reforms, a new harassment reporting system, mandatory bias training for staff, and an independent review board for disciplinary actions. They also expanded their scholarship program and hired a diversity coordinator, a position that went to a former educator who actually cared about protecting vulnerable students. Bryce Hamilton transferred to a boarding school in another state. Maya heard through the grapevine that he was in therapy, court-mandated, as part of his expulsion agreement. She hoped it would help him. She hoped he'd learn something. But mostly, she focused on her own future. On graduation day, Maya stood at the podium as valedictorian, a position she'd earned through grades that no one could question or diminish. Her mother sat in the front row, tears streaming down her face. Aisha, Jason, Deshaun, and Mia sat together, cheering. We are told that education is the great equalizer, Maya said in her speech. But that's only true if the system actually treats students equally. This year, some of us learned that justice doesn't come from authority figures who are supposed to protect us. It comes from ordinary people who decide that enough is enough. She looked at her friends, at her mother, at the sea of faces before her. My father used to say that integrity isn't what you do when people are watching. It's what you do when no one is watching. This year, I learned that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision to act despite fear. And I learned that the most powerful weapon against injustice isn't anger or violence. It's truth, documented and undeniable. She paused, letting her words sink in. To everyone who's ever been made to feel like they don't belong in school, in their community, in their own skin, I want you to know. You belong. Your voice matters. Your truth matters. And if the people in power won't listen, document everything. Build your case. Find your allies, and take your truth to people who will listen. The applause was thunderous. After the ceremony, as Maya posed for photos with her mother and her friends, she saw someone watching from the edge of the crowd. For a moment, she tensed, but it wasn't Bryce. It was Tyler. He approached slowly, his hands in his pockets. He looked different, smaller somehow, less sure of himself. Maya, he said quietly, I just wanted to say I'm sorry for everything. I was wrong. We were all wrong. And you were braver than any of us deserved. Maya studied him for a long moment. She saw genuine remorse in his eyes. She also saw how uncomfortable this was for him, apologizing to someone he'd helped torment. Thank you, she said finally. That means something. Tyler nodded and walked away. You didn't have to accept his apology, Aisha said quietly. I know, Maya replied. But maybe he'll learn something from it. Maybe he'll be better. And if he's not? Maya smiled a real smile, free of bitterness. Then that's his choice and his consequence. I'm done carrying other people's cruelty. She looked at her diploma, at her mother's proud face, at the future stretching ahead of her like an open road. She thought about her father and hoped he'd be proud. She'd fought smart. She documented everything. She'd built her case. And she won, not just for herself, but for everyone who'd been told they didn't belong. The golden boy had fallen. And Maya Richardson, the scholarship student who'd been told she was taking up space, had proven that integrity and truth were more powerful than money, privilege or perfect smiles. She had earned her place, and no one could ever take that away from her.